From the first fur traders paddling close to the shoreline to the modern freighters that eventually sail the oceans, commercial shipping on Lake Michigan has always been a risky business. Heavily traveled, its bottom is a graveyard littered with the wrecks of ships caught in the storms we never even see from the shore. One of those ships is special to this time of year. Her name board reads the Rouse Simmons, but she is known as the Christmas Tree Ship.
The program you are about to see is a very special documentary. It was produced by WTMJ Television in Milwaukee and is being brought to you by Blunt Ellison Lowy Incorporated in the interest of preserving an important part of our Great Lakes heritage. The making of this documentary was almost as intriguing as the story of the Christmas tree ship itself. Milwaukee diver and sonar expert Kent Bellrichard searched for more than 2 years before he finally located the Rouse Simmons. Because of the extreme depth, Bellrichard could stay down for only 6 minutes at a time with just one dive per day. Thus, it took several months to explore and film the sunken schooner, always with the constant danger of becoming entangled in the nylon fishing nets which over the years had caught on the wreck. Bellrichard and Television 4 rounded out the story by combing historical records, newspaper accounts, and archival photographs. A WTMJ reporter traveled extensively to find and interview the few remaining people who personally knew the Rouse Simmons and its crew. Their vivid eyewitness accounts comprise a priceless historical record, and we are grateful for their cooperation. And now, the Christmas Tree Ship.
Captain Herman Schoenemann, owner and skipper of the good ship Rouse Simmons. He was an able seaman, familiar with the lake and its tirades of wind and wave, and he was a shrewd businessman. At the turn of the century, a time when steam was powering an increasing amount of the commercial shipping on Lake Michigan, Schoenemann found enough business to keep his aging schooner active, and the family financially well off. And the major source of his income came from selling Christmas trees to the people of Chicago at the Clark Street Pier. Christmas trees. Schoenemann paid 2 cents a pound for them in Thompson, Michigan, a booming lumber town in the summer. 2 cents. A lot of money at the time. In fact, Schoenemann, over the years, had become a mainstay of the winter economy in Thompson. Mrs. Alvin Nelson's father ran Hruska's Meat Market in Thompson and supplied the Christmas tree ship with provisions for the trips to Chicago.
My brother delivered the meat down to the boat. Every time we went down there, why, he had something to give us, some candy or something that he'd brought from Chicago. And living where we lived, we didn't see very much in those days, I can tell you that. That meant a lot to us. We knew Christmas was coming, and I tell you, we were all excited. We start getting out the Sears and Roebuck catalog, start looking, picking out what we wanted. And Mr. Schoenemann, when he came, he used to always bring us a few things, you know, because he liked all the Thompson people. He had been with the Thompson people a lot. That was part of his life, to come up there and get the Christmas trees like that.
Out of Thompson, into the lake, and down the coast to Chicago. Every bit of hold and deck crammed and jammed and stuffed with evergreens for the department stores, churches, parlors, and shanties of Chicago. He'd sell them for about 75 cents a tree, sometimes $1, and always with a story of sailing the lake. And sometimes for the lucky, an invitation to dine aboard the Christmas tree ship. But during the 20 years the captain brought trees to Chicago, he wasn't above an occasional bit of smuggling. Deer meat, shot out of season, would sometimes just make its way into the hold of the Simmons, hidden among the Christmas trees. If there was money to be made, Herman Schoenemann would make it. The year was 1912. Schoenemann, now 42 years old, envisioned 2 trips that year to Chicago with trees. But he misjudged the time and underestimated the weather. It was mid-November when he finally docked at Thompson, too late for a second trip to Chicago, some 3 days down the coast. So Schoenemann would make only one trip, with all the trees the Simmons could carry. His self-imposed deadline for reaching Chicago was between Thanksgiving and the 1st of December. And to meet that deadline, trees were loaded day and night. The Simmons settled lower in the water each day as the trees were stacked aboard. The weather that season had been treacherous. Captain Schoenemann arrived after what local sailors called the big storm. It was the worst they could remember, and it foretold of a hard, early, and bitter winter ahead. People in Thompson were already burning parts of their homes to try to keep warm. By November 20th, it became clear to Schoenemann that he'd have to sail within the next 2 days to meet his deadline. The weather had improved slightly, and the Simmons was nearing her limit of cargo. On the 21st, the weather changed. Another storm was brewing, and most expected it to hit about the same time the Simmons was to sail the next day.
I was just talking to a girl now over to my house that's playing bridge over there. And she's like, I can remember my daddy dinner with Mr. Simmons that night. And he said, or that noon, and he said, Herman, I don't think you should go. He says, you're never going to make it. He said, the people in Chicago have to have their trees for Christmas. That's what he felt.
In Thompson, Fred Hinson is known as Hinky. He remembers the Christmas tree ship and the way Captain Schoenemann would pile the decks high with the fresh-cut evergreens.
How loaded was the ship?
It was damn loaded right down from their decks, too.
Describe that so that...
Well, you know, your hull here is here. That's the floor there. Well, then there's about that much railing around the boat. It's all boarded inside with holes in so sea runs off. Well, she had from there up, that's where she had the boards and stuff. And I think that was at least good 8 foot high to hold the trees in case of the wind.
Do you think the ship was overloaded then?
Yeah, I believe it.
The night before the Simmons was to sail, there was an omen of disaster. The rats, constant companions on all ships, deserted the Rouse Simmons. Having seen this, 3 of Schoenemann's crew members pleaded with the captain not to sail. But he was determined, so the 3 men forfeited their pay and stayed ashore. Osborne Stanley, a resident of Thompson, was working on the docks that night and saw the sailors leave.
3 sailors left the ship, refused to go on that trip. Why?
Because the rats was leaving the boat. That's what they claimed. I've seen rats leaving the boat myself.
How long before the ship sailed did you see the rats?
Well, I was down there the night before they sailed. The evening, late afternoon and evening. We took some meat down to them.
My dad saying, he'll never make it. He'll never make it. He'll never be back in my meat market again.
In the late afternoon of November 22nd, 1912, with the clock and the weather against him, Captain Herman Schoenemann and the Christmas tree ship, under full sail, left Thompson Harbor for the last time. The fears of those on shore and Schoenemann's own crew became a reality within a few hours. The captain had made a fatal error in judgment. As the tiny ship ventured further into the lake, the full force of the storm hit. By midnight, the lake was washing over the decks, battering Schoenemann as he manned the wheel. Fighting for his life, the lives of his crewmen, and the survival of his ship, Schoenemann decided to try to make the Wisconsin shore. But then the wind shifted. The temperature fell. Water began to freeze everywhere. Each time the bow hit a wave, more water poured into the ship's main hold and froze. The tons of additional weight pushed the battered schooner deeper into the sea. There was nothing more Schoenemann could do. His tired ship was helpless.
Friday. Everybody, goodbye. I guess we are all through. Sea washed over our deck boat Thursday. During the night, the small boat was washed over, leaking bad. Ingvald and Steve fell overboard Thursday. God help us. Herman Schuneman.
The Simmons distress signal seen from shore brought men in lifeboats chasing her. They spotted her about noon on the 23rd. But the Kewanee Coast Guard crew faced the same heavy seas, and they couldn't close the distance despite their best efforts on the oars. For 2 hours, they fought to reach the Christmas tree ship. And then, as the storm turned into a blizzard, they saw her for the last time. Her sails now rags flapping in the gale-force winds, her decks glare ice, and her distress pennant tattered. That was their last view, the last view any man would see of the Christmas tree ship for more than half a century.
These lines are written at 10:30 p.m. Schooner RS is ready to go down about 20 miles southeast of Two Rivers and at a point between 15 and 20 miles offshore. All the hands are lashed to one line. Goodbye. First Mate Nelson.
And so Chicago missed its Christmas trees in 1912. In the decades that followed, hundreds of stories about the Christmas tree ship appeared in newspapers throughout the Midwest. They all told basically the same story and ended with basically the same question. Where was the Rouse Simmons? What had happened? Theodore Charney has spent years researching the history of the Rouse Simmons. Among other things, he has found the sinking was greeted with mixed reactions.
Controversy when she was lost as to what happened to her, where she went. Some people thought she was still out in the middle of the lake thrashing in the storms. Others thought she had found a haven somewhere that had no telegraphic communications. Actually, it was 2 weeks after the ship was expected to arrive in Chicago before any search was really instituted for it. And by that time, of course, it was long gone.
There was precious little evidence to go by. In addition to the bottled notes from Schuneman and First Mate Nelson, bundles of Christmas trees washed up on the Wisconsin shore. Two Rivers fishermen were constantly snagging the waterlogged trees in their nets. One of them was Albert Alley, who now spends most of his time making and selling smoked fish. That's been a family tradition for 3 generations. In 1924, Albert and his brother Norman found something in their nets far more valuable than trees.
A wallet just like this. It was closed up. And my brother was sitting down, and I guess he was sitting down. And here he says, got a pocketbook. And, geez, we went over there. I hope, my dad says, I hope there's some money in. But he looked, there was no money. And he looked in there was 2 compartments. He looked in there, and he said, geez, he says, here's some papers. The guy's name is in here. And he was a captain, all right. He must have been. But his name, he was a captain. That's what was his name, see? So that's all we knew about the pocketbook. So then he took the pocketbook and he brought it over to Mayor Kearns. He was mayor of Two Rivers then. And he told him what he found, and he says, it's no good to me. He says, maybe it's no good to you either, but you might want it. So he gave it to Kearns, and what he did with it then, I don't know what he done with it.
Okay, how long after the Simmons had gone down did you find this wallet?
Oh, it was quite a while after the Simmons went down. Well, what we were bothered with, my dad, when the Christmas trees went off the deck, you know where they went? They went on the bottom, and that's when we got all that. Christmas trees was in the nets, and there must have been 100 on top of the boat that we got in the net.
The inspiration I received from the man who found the wallet, the anger from the fishermen when they would express the stories of when the trees were tangled in their nets, all gave me the incentive to and the drive to go out and find it, and I eventually did.
Kent Bell Richard, age 28, is a native of Milwaukee. He grew up on the south side, just 2 blocks from Lake Michigan. Professionally trained in sonar, he has spent several years diving in the Great Lakes area. In October of 1971, he became the first man to see the Christmas tree ship after 59 years. He was alone, and the lake was growing rougher.
The conditions were very bad. They were heavily overcast, for one, with a light mist and fog. So I could only see maybe a half a mile, at times a mile. After crisscrossing and going north and south and east and west, you kind of lose a track of where you are in the lake. So I really didn't know where I was when I got the target on the Christmas tree ship. I knew I had a good target, and obviously from our experience with the electronic equipment, I can tell if it's a bad bottom, a rocky bottom, or a shipwreck. And I was quite sure this was a shipwreck. But just what shipwreck, you're not really sure until you go down and look at it. When I did go down, I was quite sure it was the Rouse Simmons, but I had an old rickety handmade, homemade light that I had put together and it broke. So I was in complete blackness when I got down to the wreck, but I could feel it. And so I managed to tie the line that I brought down onto the wreck. And I really couldn't see too much because the light was out, and I could just kind of feel my way around in the blackness. But we really went back about a week later and identified it as the Rouse Simmons. It's a little frustrating to say, well, all this time was spent looking for it, and it has to be the wreck. If the buoy's gone, where do you start? Because I didn't really know. I had a depth, which did help. I knew precisely how deep the wreck was, so I could concentrate my search in that area, and I would eventually find it. But how much time? I had already spent 2.5 summers looking for it. The first thing we saw were the trees, of course, in the hole. Hundreds of Christmas trees, spruce and pine trees. And then, much to our surprise, we saw the name boards, quarter boards, they're called, on both sides of the ship near the stern, quite visible and still in perfect shape. Rouse Simmons was built in 1868 and sailed many hard years until it was lost in 1912. It was old for a schooner, but to go through what she did and land on the bottom in an upright condition, in perfect shape, was quite amazing to us.
What did it feel like when you saw that name board with a light on it and it was absolutely confirmed?
It was a tremendous thrill the very first time I went down, because I was 99% sure it was the Rouse Simmons. In fact, I came back up and got in the boat, and there wasn't anybody within 6 miles. It was quite rough in the lake, and there weren't any sport fishermen out for sure. The nearest point of land was a little over 6 miles. There was nobody around, but yet I'm hollering to myself in joy that I had finally found this ship. Many of the old fishermen never even knew what the name of the ship was. They referred to it as the Christmas tree ship. In fact, when I was up there looking for the Vernon and doing my research on the 2 shipwrecks, I didn't even know what the name of the Rouse Simmons or the Christmas tree ship was. It wasn't until later when I got into the research and found out over a few beers in the tavern that the actual name of the Christmas tree ship was the Rouse Simmons. We found an electric light bulb from the Rouse Simmons. It was quite amazing that the light bulb even was intact, but it was even more amazing that the ship had electricity. In 1912, it wasn't often on the old wood schooners, but I think what Captain Schuneman had, when he would tie up in Chicago at the dock, he would plug in some electric lights to light up his sign that said his trees were the cheapest and so forth, and enhance the Christmas trees. Well, we removed some wreckage on the stern to get down into the lower cabins and into the galley. In the process of removing this wreckage, this light bulb popped to the surface, and one of the fellows aboard the boat saw it and scooped it up with a fish net. And it was intact, and the filament was still good. And about a month later, we applied some gentle electricity to it on a rheostat to bring the voltage up slowly, and believe it or not, it glowed, and it's a real nice souvenir.
You say you don't want other people ripping off souvenirs, and yet you've done that.
Well, to take it and to sell it, a lot of skin divers sell the stuff to whoever, to put gas in their tank or gas in their fuel tank and air in their scuba tank. I don't begrudge them of that, really. But there's a lot of other shipwrecks they can do that too. I just feel that the Rouse Simmons is too close to me, and possibly the Vernon, to have that happen to. There's a lot of shallow water shipwrecks that they can go do that too. The anchor is on public display for everybody to see. Everything that we've taken from that ship is been given or will be given to some organization that everybody can enjoy seeing and feeling and seeing the history in it. To sit in somebody's rec room or in a garage or on a wall is fine. But I think that the souvenir, everything you see here, will eventually be donated to some organization where everybody can enjoy it. For a while, sure, to have a cup and to remember the history behind it and to drink out of it is fine, but I think it should be shared and enjoyed by everybody in this area of the Great Lakes. It would be kind of interesting to photograph some of the old cook stove and the cookware that they used on the old ship, but if it's not laying out in plain sight, we can't spend a lot of time at that depth. To set up a scene, we shoot it as it is, and what you see is the way it's sat since 1912 on the bottom, undisturbed.
The end of the Christmas tree ship did not mean the end of the Christmas tree business Schoenemann had established over the years. Herman's widow, Barbara, carried on the trade, even hiring schooners to tie up at the dock as a salesroom, and personally supervising the cutting of trees at Thompson. She continued shipping the trees by rail into Chicago until her death in 1933. Her daughters tried to continue after that, but by 1940, the family, its tradition, and the Christmas tree ship had disappeared into history. There are natural and man-made tributes to the Christmas tree ship at both ends of Lake Michigan. This is all that remains of the old lumber mill and dock in Thompson, where the Simmons used to berth. Local residents and tourists now use it as a fishing pier, unaware of the history of the structure. And finally, in Chicago's Acacia Cemetery lies the grave of the captain's wife. His name appears with hers on the headstone, and carved between the two names is a lone Christmas tree.
Von Ellison Lowy is very pleased to be a part of this presentation of the Christmas tree ship. As is so often the case, real-life drama is even more fascinating than fiction. Then, too, the Christmas tree ship is really two adventures in one. An historic adventure of men who long ago sailed the Great Lakes in proud schooners, and a modern adventure of men who explored deep waters for the many mysteries hidden there. Von Ellison Lowy feels that the tragic sinking of the Rouse Simmons and the long search for the fabled Christmas tree ship is a story of true historic significance. We'd like everyone to have the opportunity to see it. We're underwriting the cost of making the program available through film libraries to schools, museums, and historical societies. We also share Kent Bellrichard's strong conviction that the artifacts he found on the Christmas tree ship are part of our public heritage and should be displayed for everyone to see. We applaud Mr. Bellrichard's willingness to make these items available for public exhibit. We also want to give special thanks to WTMJ Television and the Chicago Historical Society for their contributions to the creation of this program, and to Mr. John Steele of Waukegan for his support of the divers in their search for the Rouse Simmons.